Permiso pido mi gente para empezar a cantar. Para empezar a cantar, permiso pido mi gente. Hoy les comparto mi historia para poder conectar. Para poder conectar, hoy les comparto mi historia. Freedom from fear. Esa libertad de vivir sin miedo. En verdad yo no creo que sea posible no vivir con ningún tipo de miedo, pero yo creo que sí es posible crear una vida donde el miedo no nos controle. Y les vengo a platicar de eso hoy. Hello everyone, my name is Ximena Violante. My pronouns are he, they, and I was born in Mexico, and I moved up here to a white West Philly, a white Philly suburb called Collegeville. Do y'all know Collegeville? Anybody? Maybe you know it. My mom knows it. I see her raising her hand. And so I moved up here when I was 7 years old. And, you know, I grew up playing classical violin. I grew up playing, then getting into like rock and indie guitar. And it wasn't until I got to college, meeting other Mexican and Chicano folks, that I started realizing how much there was from my own culture that I didn't even know about. And so I started just delving into that, and that exploration has led me to where I am today, in playing son jarocho, which is a little bit of what you just heard right now, and playing the jarana. And all of this comes from an Afro-Indigenous tradition from the Gulf Coast of Mexico. And we now are turning 8 years old with our community music workshops called Son Revoltura here in Philly. And I'm also I'm a band leader for a band called Interminable that brings together that son jarocho with funk and with jazz and with rock, and we make original music. And so one word that has kind of helped me understand what I've lived is a word that I've coined that I call diaspora, which is that living between diaspora and dysphoria, right? That living between the diaspora of being a migrant, of being distanced from one's home, and of being trans and being distanced from one's own bodily and maybe social expression. It's a word that encapsulates multiple yearnings at once. And in putting together this talk, I remembered this kind of long, like, angsty poem I wrote like years ago to a close friend of mine when I was barely graduating from college and barely emerging from this really deep mental health crisis and just general existential crisis. And one of the lines that has kind of stuck with me from that moment was when I wrote, "I cannot stand this in-betweenness." Because back then, I just longed for that absolute belonging. And that possibility of never finding it filled me with such deep fear. But life has a funny way of leading us away from the things we want and towards the things that maybe we actually need. Cuando la luna te pida que des un paso pa'lante, ay, no le digas que no. And so I wrote this song years ago called Consecuencia, consequence, but it's also kind of a play on words. Consecuencia, with sequence, to talk about that, about how life has a lot of turns in the road. Y en estos rumbos verás que nuestra luz no es errante al decirnos que no. And so I started this practice some years ago of asking myself, when I felt hesitation in me and trepidation and that feeling of not wanting to do something or of not wanting to say a certain thing, asking myself, why is it that I don't want to do it? And if the answer was simply because I'm afraid, then I pushed myself to do it. Because living in diaspora taught me that in that distance, there's a lesson to listen to what we can change and what we need to accept, what we need to celebrate in ourselves. And so I stand before you today knowing that my in-betweenness is a gift. I stand before you today honoring the grief of never fully belonging. So whether you're trans, whether you're a migrant, whether you're, for whatever reason, living between different worlds, know that we carry a deep medicine. Because we understand many different experiences, that makes us a bridge. And we can act at that and act from that, because this world desperately needs connection. So I leave you with this song. This is a song that I do with my band Interminable, and it's called El Camino, which means kind of like the path, the journey. And in the chorus, it says, este camino es largo y lo llevaré en mi voz. Caminemos juntos pa que avancemos mejor. And that means this road is long, and my voice will reflect that. But if we walk together, then we walk together stronger. Caminando me he perdido, dando vueltas sin parar, caminando me he perdido, pero al volver al camino me llegó la claridad que este camino fue largo y gracias a eso voy a amar. Y este camino es largo y lo llevaré en mi voz. Caminemos juntos pa' que avancemos mejor. Y este camino es largo y lo llevaré en mi voz. Ay, tírame las llaves de tu corazón. Traigo esperanza en mi voz, la dulce melancolía de ese futuro día del cual cantan estos vientos. Y espero no ser precoz al decir que yo lo veo en cada señal que leo, un destino irreversible, un camino accesible, la libertad que deseo. Nuestros pasados nos unen y esos mares que cruzamos que nos dejaron marcados hoy nos llevan a las nubes. Pues yo les diré en resumen que de aquí en adelante yo dedico mi descante, esta lucha en la que estamos, sea en la fiesta o sea en reclamos. Nuestro futuro es gigante. Este camino es largo y lo llevaré en mi voz. Caminemos juntos pa' que avancemos mejor. Y este camino es largo y lo llevaré en mi voz. Caminemos juntos. Thank you.